Our social constructions of what's normal can be a powerful force. Our tendency towards ethnocentrism, or centering on our own culture, leads us to see anything that deviates from our norms as strange or even evil. Here you see two women both experiencing culture shock and reacting ethnocentrically to each other's norms of appropriate clothing. They don't use Verstehen to understand each other's reasons for their behavior, and so make biased conclusions. Almost anywhere you go in the world, at some point you're likely to end up interacting with someone from a different cultural background. Multiculturalism celebrates this diversity and works towards mutual respect and equality. That means not reacting to culture shock with ethnocentrism, basing your judgments on your own culture's norms, but instead with cultural relativism, which means trying to understand what their behavior means relative to their own culture. So if you offer me escargot, a French snail dish, my initial culture shock will probably lead to a feeling of disgust, but I will try to react with cultural relativism, saying, I'm not used to eating that, but I hear many people think it's delicious. Maybe I'll even try it. Or maybe I'll just let them enjoy it. Not everything about a culture can be observed directly. Getting used to different material culture like foods, or non-material culture such as norms of behavior and symbolic greetings, can be fairly easy once you get used to it. But culture goes much deeper, and includes knowledge, understanding, beliefs, and values. Values can often be more difficult to treat with cultural relativism because they involve internal understanding of what you consider good, important, and desirable. Many Americans react negatively to the word socialism because they feel it is in opposition to our common individualistic values, believing that individual competition and self-promotion is what's most important. But many cultures are more collectivist, believing that the duty of the individual is to the group, that promotion of the community is the most important thing. Sometimes there can be subtle differences in values. For instance, most Americans say they value equality, but they can mean different things. For some, equality means everyone should have equal rights, paying equal taxes, obeying equal laws. For others, it means actively working towards equal opportunity to overcome an unequal history. In The Lion King, we see cultural of the dominant group being tradition and multiculturalism, as we see Mufasa teach Simba about his role as king within the larger circle of life and the importance of respect for all creatures. We also see traditional segregation, with the hyenas relegated to the elephant graveyard. Sociologists in the 1960s and 70s researched American culture to discover our 15 most common values. Politicians recognize the importance of appealing to voters' values, so you'll hear them talk about them regularly. President Obama brought up the complexity of cultural values, that we believe not just in individual freedom, hard work, and success, but also in equality and humanitarianism, that we should each give back and help others. America was founded by people seeking a better life, and grew by pushing forward toward the western frontier. That history has left its mark on the way we seek out newer and better ways of living. You can often see our values utilized in advertising, each product offering a quicker, easier, more advanced life, and promising what time we could save for comfort and love. Our shared values are some of the most essential, but abstract social structures that lay the groundwork for our formal institutions. As seen in recent politics, values can be contradictory and divisive as we idealize democracy and equality, but in reality tend towards ethnocentrism and an assumption that my group, my party, my culture, my religion are the right ones. The belief in group supremacy has led to extreme forms of group inequality, which we'll talk about after the midterm. But different groups can segregate and exploit one another, exile them out of society, or even commit genocide, trying to kill off another group entirely. Yet we are a nation of immigrants from all over the world, and when different cultures meet, they can interact in different ways. Do we celebrate our differences with multicultural pluralism, giving people the option to retain their heritage and reacting to new cultures with cultural relativism? And when our cultures diffuse into one another, do they do so equally, creating an amalgamation of many different cultural traditions, the classic image of the American melting pot? Or is there a dominant group in this country that expects all others to assimilate to its own culture? Despite the fact that English was brought into this land by immigrants, is assimilating to that as the dominant language the only way to be accepted? What does it mean to be an American? Are we one big ethnic group with minor subcultural differences, or a society made up of many distinct ethnic groups with differing norms and values? Many Americans who identify most strongly with their ancestral racial or ethnic group are surprised to find those outside of America often identify them simply as an American. Yet regional differences have long been noted, and when you look at the results of national elections, you can see a major divide between North and South in the original territories on the East Coast. You can also see differences between the frontiers of the Midwest and the West Coast. Before the results were finalized for the 2012 presidential election, you see a much more complex divide between states that were clearly for Obama, clearly for Romney, and those that were undecided. Colin Woodard explains those differences by showing where the dominant immigrant groups settled and built lasting social structures on their own ethnic cultures. Although the cultures have changed over time and other groups have moved in or were there already, the most powerful group to set up a permanent modern society created the norms and values to which one had to assimilate to be successful in formal institutions. So while African culture has been influential in informal norms and material culture in the South, it was the English slavers and Scots-Irish hill folk, both distrustful of collectivist government, that set the course for regional politics, and moved into the West. The Puritans believed in the power of the collective to improve society, and set the tone for the North, while also influencing the West Coast, while English aristocrats, Quakers, Latin Caribbeans, and Mexicans mixed things up in other areas. It's an interesting theory that are still held up fairly well in the unusual 2016 election, but it's not the only divide in American culture. Looking more closely, we also see divides in every region between those living in urban city areas, which you can see in the tall spikes here, and the rural county areas. Cultures change with the life experiences of the individuals that construct them. Next time, we'll look deeper at divides that occur within a culture, such as in my home state of Oregon.